Okay, thank you. You know who I am, so I don't need to do that again. I'm very excited about this presentation, which is why I put it next, so that I can sort of warm up on the first one. But this is a presentation about the response of our short-lived non-native salmonids to the Cisco boom of 2022. When I was talking to Mark Vincent the other day about this stuff, he said, when there's more food, they eat more, just like Mark. So this is a picture of a buddy of mine with a Chinook from a bunch of years ago, sleeping giant in the background. There's a lake freighter over there at the end of that rainbow. So Josh Blankenheim from Minnesota DNR supplied me with a bunch of slides, and Mark Vincent helped me out a bunch too. So this is kind of a fishing story. It's not as rigorous as some of the other stuff that you've seen today. So I'll start out in June 12th of 2016. I'll give you a little bit of background first. So the years leading up to June 12th of 2016, there's a derby in Thunder Bay, salmon derby that's run every year. So in 2013, that derby was won by an 11.28 pound fish. It was an 8-day derby with almost 300 people fishing that derby. Lots and lots of effort with a lot of anglers, better than the anglers in this story. 2014, the derby was won by a fish that was 8.93 pounds. 8 days, 300 applicants. So it was dismal enough in coming on the shoulders of this like really, really bad run of fishing that the Thunder Bay Salmon Association shortened the derby from an 8-day derby to a 3-day derby, which is still the derby that runs now. So the fishing had been so bad, and they were so disappointed with the maximum size of these fish that they actually shortened their derby. 2015, in mid-July, a fish won the derby that was 8.91 pounds. So on June 12, 2016, a couple eager young teenagers went fishing early. This is early days for Lake Superior salmon fishing because it's still really cold, and normally you might go out and catch some lake trout or something, but by noon, they had a cooler full of salmon. Couldn't fish anymore because they had 3 identical 13.5-pound salmon that each one of those fish would have easily won the big money in the derby the year before, but nobody could catch one. So they wondered what could have happened, and they wondered whether it could have possibly been related to the fact that there was like a blip in Cisco recruitment in 2014 and an even smaller blip in 2015. So they weren't really teenagers. They were Eric Berglund, who gave the coaster talk earlier, and me. But when Eric sent me these photos the other day, I looked at them and thought, my God, how time has passed. So it was an amazing day of fishing. You can see the fish laid out in front of us there. There were 3 large fish. And like I said, we're not amazing salmon anglers by any stretch. And 300 anglers the year before fishing for 3 days could not catch one fish anywhere close to this. So something substantial had changed between July that year before and June when we were out fishing. So why? So Lake Superior is different. So we are lucky enough to still have an intact native prey base. So we rely on carrigines to the most extent for the food for fish in Lake Superior. This cuts both ways because the lower lakes with more predictable maximum size than their Chinook salmon have alewife, which are great to eat. They're huge schools of fish that are all bite-sized. They don't get super huge. But alewife also have thymidase, which has spelled a lot of problems for restoration of native fish in those lakes. So we have alewife in Lake Superior, very, very few. We do have smelt, so in most of now, because we have such sporadic Cisco recruitment, smelt are actually a very important foodstuff for Lake Superior non-native salmonids. But it really seems that in the absence of any carrigine recruitment, that a diet based on smelts seems to support about a 9-pound Chinook. That's it. Maximum size after 4 years, 9 pounds. So current Cisco recruitment in Lake Superior, most of you probably know this, but it is extremely inconsistent. And it's been worse since 1998 than the period before that. There is some question about whether it has been this inconsistent through time, like historically whether it was this inconsistent, but the answer is probably yes. Kurganines are pretty sporadic in terms of their recruitment. So most of the time, if you're a Chinook living in Lake Superior and you have dreams of growing to 30 pounds in your 4-year life, you are going to be disappointed. So here's some information about Cisco. So this bubble plot, hopefully everybody can follow what's going on here. I love these plots. So as you go, that's the time across the bottom here, and these diagonal bubble lines are tracing a year class as it goes through time. So you follow that big bubble line in the middle of the diagram there, down to the bottom, you see 2003. The one before that is 1998. And before that, the one that ends up high, that's actually in 1989. There's 2009 there, and then there's the 2014, 2015 bubbles to the far right. Those are the fish that would have been producing those larger salmon that Eric and I caught. Did I just, oh, I did something wrong, sorry. Okay, I turned the remote, that's why. So the other thing about Cisco is that they grow fast, and then they also grow big. So Cisco are only available, so if I go back here quickly, you can see that those 2023 fish, or sorry, 2003 fish, are still getting caught in our surveys now. So they're over 20 years old. They're still out there. So Cisco grow to be old, and when they're old, they're relatively big. So Cisco grow fast, and so this is, so Mark made this beautiful plot here. So the larval surveys in 2022, you have your larval Ciscos you see there, and then in the next survey, that's the 1-year survey that everybody's familiar with those data, that's in 2023, and those fish are already over 100 mils long. So at the end of 2024, those fish were approaching 250 mils, and by next summer they'll probably be around 270 mils. And that's a buddy of mine with a Cisco that he caught recently ice fishing, but so that is not a huge Cisco, but it's a very big thing to try to eat. Too big for a Chinook. So here's the critical question, and this is a Magnum spoon, so it's up against a ruler. With the hook included, that spoon is 15 centimeters, so 150 mils. Like, that's a big spoon. So can a 3-year-old Chinook eat a 250 millimeter Cisco? I talked to a PhD researcher out in BC who studies Chinook forage, and he said probably not. But then he also said we don't on the West Coast have fish that are sort of obligated to eat prey of that size. They always have prey that's a friendlier size to eat. So he said, I don't really know. And the way that I describe this at home is that, like, Lake Superior Chinook are sort of just surrounded by cheeseburgers. There's just these amazing meals to eat right now, all around them. And those meals are getting bigger. So every time they eat one of these things, they're actually gaining more weight than they did before. So here's the forage problem up until last year. So forage, in the USGS surveys that they run every year, they've been seeing this decline in forage in Lake Superior year over year. And it's not, I mean, not year over year, it goes up and down, but it's been a bad picture. Every time we have a meeting, we talk about the fact that there seems to be an issue with forage. So this is, everybody probably has seen this figure before, it's amazing. This is the catch in the USGS trawls in spring, so these are the 1-year-old fish It's a measure of recruitment. When you get a big bar on this graph, those fish will live to be in the commercial fishery. So that huge bar is 1984, legendary year class. You can see on the right of this figure here, those little blips are actually year classes that are supporting like substantial and important commercial fisheries. 2003 in relation to 1984 is tiny, but a very important year class. You can see here on the bottom left, I've included the numbers from those surveys that would have been associated with the fish that Eric and I guess the Derby winners when they were 8.93 pounds. You can see that those fish were living in a time when there had been no Cisco recruitment from 2010 to 2013. No Cisco out there, no baby Cisco to eat. But at that time, there were smelt to eat. So there are the smelt numbers there. So in 2014, they had a value of 14.31 Cisco per hectare. And in 2009, that was 14.03. Those are very low compared to 1984, which is over 700. And then 2022, which was over 1,000. So here's what happened in 2022. Huge recruitment of kai, huge recruitment of bloater, and huge recruitment of Cisco. So suddenly there were fish everywhere. The other interesting story is that there was a lot of recruitment of smelt, because the smelt were likely able to hide with all sorts of other fish that were shiny and looked the same and were everywhere. So in that USGS trawls, they were finding that the values were 650 smelt per hectare at that time. So lots of smelt, and then lots of these other things. Smelt stay small, Cisco grow bigger. So I put this up just so you can see what it looked like before we had the 2022. Like 1984 was so dominant back there, but back in that before 2022, and there you go with the 2022 on the plot. But of course, the most important question, what happened to the salmon? So these are data from Minnesota, because we don't really have many coho salmon, or we don't have much in the way of data for cohos. This is a normal sort of coho, probably a bug eater, 150 mils long. So in 2023, the state record in Minnesota was broken, 10 pound, 14 ouncer. Then it was broken again in the early summer of 2024, which is interesting because it seemed like most of the cohos got biggest in 2023 because the prey probably got too big for the gape limitation. So here's some condition data and length data for those coho. You can see that in the previous years, 2020 to 2022, the fish did not exceed 22 inches. But in the 23 to 24 year, we have fish that are vastly bigger, plus the condition, those yellow dots are higher than the black dots because the condition of those fish were better. So they were fatter fish and they were longer. You can also see here though that 2023 was the big year for cohos. So Chinooks, same story. These are Minnesota Chinooks, same story. So the fish were longer, and those fish, the condition data show that the fish were also heavier at length than they were previously. So here is the prediction for 2025. And the cheeseburger analogy I used earlier, my daughter has become addicted to the Trailer Park Boys, and she asked me so many times to do the cover slide with Randy chasing after a school of cheeseburgers. But so there's Randy standing in front of a pile of cheeseburgers. Mark made this figure here. So here's the 2003 year class, followed by Chinook getting bigger 2 years in a row. Then they descended. 2009 year class, followed by Chinook getting bigger 2 years in a row. 2015 year class, 2014, 2015, 2 years of growth. So 2022 has had 1 year of bigger Chinook so far. And I understand that this is a pretty weak data set, but we also don't collect these kind of data for Chinook. So it's a real, we don't have much in the way to go on. And I'm also really, really hoping that this is the truth, because I went and fished for these things last year and it was like the best thing I've ever done in my life. So here's what it looked like. This is what the boom looked like in 2024. So these are photos that were like sent to me in text messages, and they're my friends. This is not like I did some exhaustive search for amazing fish. This is just what was there. So there's me with an amazing fish. There's Kyle Rogers from our office with an amazing fish. There's a fish that I found when I was wading. My wading boot is 13 inches long. I didn't touch this fish, but it was definitely over 40 inches long. There's Kyle Stratton, sorely missed. Bio on our staff who's moved on, with 2 fish over 40 inches that he caught in rivers. And there is a 39.7 pound Lake Superior Chinook salmon. Like, I don't think anybody would have ever expected this. They top out at 9 pounds sometimes. So, the exciting stuff, it appears that there still should be some larger Chinooks in 2025 than 2024. It's also exciting that Superior rarely has a prey base to grow large Chinook, but once in a while when Cisco pull off a year class, they do. And the really exciting part, especially when you've got Lake Ontario colleagues in the audience, is that it seems like it might be possible that Lake Superior could break the Great Lakes record for the biggest Chinook next year, because it's 47.86 pounds for Michigan and 47.81 for Lake Ontario. And we were only 8 pounds shy of that last year, and those fish, those forage, are just getting bigger. So as long as those Chinook that are out there right now can actually eat a 250 mil Cisco, next year might be the best Chinook fishing ever in Lake Superior. Okay, thank you.